left and on your right. In case of an incident, please exit in an orderly fashion. Mr. Town Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Brink?
Here.
Councilman Kitchen?
Here.
Councilman Morrow?
Here.
Councilman Scretto?
Here.
Councilman, Supervisor Quigley?
Here. I call for additions or changes to the agenda.
None.
I have three. Number one, Mr. Larios sends his regrets. He will not be making a presentation tonight on the water supply issue in reference to the Seco Flatbush Avenue. The Police Commission reports out of session this afternoon a resignation of an additional officer that will be on the agenda to accept. And the third item came to our attention at 5 o'clock tonight. There will be a resolution on including the town of Woodstock and the city of Kingston as involved agencies in the secret process in relation to Niagara Valley. That concludes the agenda. At this point, I will open the floor to public discussion on any agenda item. Please come forward in the podium. Please state your name and your address clearly. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Do I have a timekeeper?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Town Board, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Kevin Smith. I'm a resident of Beyersville in the town of Woodstock. I'm the chairman of the Woodstock Land Conservancy. The Land Conservancy's mission is to permanently protect, steward open lands, natural resources, scenic areas, and historic sites in Woodstock and neighboring communities in the surrounding eastern Catskills. As well, we want to connect people, especially children, to nature and to the land through education, outreach, and communication, and to model sustainability in our operations, in our stewardship of lands, and in our communities, including intelligent adaptation to and mitigation of the effects of climate change. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the Niagara proposal tonight. We partnered with Hudson Riverkeeper to commission Carpenter Engineering to develop a preliminary report on potential environmental impacts as they may be associated with the entire action of the proposed Niagara bottling facility and the supply of water to that facility from the Kingston water supply, the reservoir at Cooper Lake, and the waters from which it derives in Mink Hollow, the Mink Hollow Brook, and the Mink Hollow watershed, as well as the discharges from the plant as proposed into the lower Esopus Creek and the Hudson River. We hope that this engineering report will begin to sketch out what we believe are some of the many potential environmental impacts involved with this proposal and provide assistance to the town of Ulster as a lead agency in identifying them and analyzing them thoroughly as part of the scoping process, which we very much appreciate that you are going to do a public scoping process. We think that that is absolutely imperative and appreciate the recognition of the town in doing so. As well, I would like to speak to one thing, which is that Riverkeeper, the Land Conservancy, the Esopus Creek Conservancy, our other partner on this study, which is based in the town of Saugerties. We urge the town of Ulster and DEC Region 3 staff to use this report in the context of the scoping process, as I mentioned, and we believe that there is regional and potentially even statewide significance here to this proposal. So we ask you to do a full and comprehensive review to utilize New York State DEC, New York State DEP, both of whom have identified how wide that the scope of the action as proposed is much narrower than what should be considered as part of this proposal, the whole action as it's construed. So I thank you very much for hearing me tonight, and look forward to the next steps of this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Dennis Doyle on behalf of the county of Ulster. I apologize to anyone who may have had their hand up. Mr. Doyle is under a time constraint.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor, and thank you to the board for giving me the opportunity to speak, and my apologies to those that I've jumped in front of. I apologize for that. First of all, I would like to say that I'm here to talk about the Niagara bottling plant and the two items that are on your agenda this evening, one being the lead agency designation and two being the proposed positive declaration with respect to the project and the proposed preparation of the draft environmental impact statement. There's been significant discussion about this proposal, and that includes others asking for recognition that the impacts for this proposal go beyond the town boundaries. As you make these decisions this evening, it is the position of the administration, one of which I share, that as you do this, it should be with the utmost inclusiveness. That inclusiveness means those folks that are involved beyond the boundaries, and I'm really heartened to hear you say tonight that you're thinking of, that you're going to consider the city of Kingston and the town of Woodstock involved agencies. And also the inclusiveness goes to the issues that are considered under that impact statement. And I would ask that you reach out and you recognize your neighbors in doing that, and you work hard to make sure that their concerns are addressed and the concerns of others are addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. I'd like to move from the left of the room, Ms. Sullivan, or Ms. Hudson, I'm sorry.
Good evening, thank you. And I wanted to follow Mr. Smith because we worked together on the report that we've submitted to the town board. We hope it will be useful for you. I just wanted to reiterate one point that we are, as a group, a bit concerned about, and that is that
Put the mic down.
the description of the action that the applicant has prepared in the EAF that you are going to approve tonight is not the description of the whole action. And so I am concerned that your resolution and the positive declaration that is based on that description may be incomplete. And I think it's important. Seeker obviously clearly indicates that the entire set of activities or steps must be considered the action, whether the agency decision-making relates to the action as a whole or only a part of it. That would be your site plan approval. So we would really urge the town board to adopt a broader definition of the action, the one that was referenced in both the DEC and DEP letters to the town, which includes the sale of water by the city of Kingston and the acquisition of water in the town of Woodstock, all of which are part of the action and need to be considered in any environmental review process. So we would urge you to correct that before you move forward with your resolutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Actually, I'd like Rebecca to go first.
Rebecca?
Thank you. Rebecca Martin from Kingston, New York, representing KingstonCitizens.org. That's a nonpartisan citizen-run organization that's focused on relevant and current issues about Kingston. And I'm pleased, too, that the town of Ulster issued a positive declaration in seeker. Thank you. It's the correct and only thing to do, really. And I'd like to speak on 3 items, some of which I'm just echoing what's been said here, that the action has been said to be segmented in the environmental assessment form, and I would like to ask that you take a close look at it, that the action located in the environmental assessment form was crafted by the Chassie companies on behalf of Niagara, is incomplete. In it, only identified here is the facility build in the town of Ulster. It does not include the water delivery via the city of Kingston and its water department from the town of Woodstock, which is critical. It's a critical aspect of the proposal. And I'm not going to say much more because it's just been addressed and you're aware. The second important item that I'd like to point out is that the town board, as lead agency, assure a formal and public scoping process. As a next step, I request that the lead agency and project sponsor determine a formal and public scoping process that, according to seeker, A written scope of issues developed through public scoping process benefits the lead agency and the sponsor by providing explicit guidance as to what criteria will be used to determine whether a submitted draft EIS is adequate. The written scope provides a means of ensuring that significant topics have not been missed and that the level of analysis in the EIS satisfies standards established during the process. Without formal scoping, the project sponsor prepares a draft EIS based on comments from the involved agencies and issues identified in the positive declaration, but without further written submissions or public input. So that's important. Now it seems that the town of Ulster has 60 days to accomplish, I believe, a formal and public scoping process. So the citizens would appreciate that you would be timely in getting this underway with enthusiasm to hear more from the taxpayers who will ultimately be responsible for a project such as Niagara through 10 years of tax abatements, pilots and additional monies, public monies.
Ma'am, you approach, you're over 3
Yes.
minutes.
Finally, that the City of Kingston be added as an involved agency in seeker. I just want to distribute, and I guess I'll give these to Jason, a copy of the will serve letter that was issued by Judy Hanson, the superintendent of the water department, who in this letter actually shows that there's construction to be done, and I'm just now trying not to take any more time, but I want you to look at this closely because in the charter, in the Kingston City Charter, the Common Council actually does have a role in any construction that's to be done on infrastructure, and this letter actually shows that construction would be necessary. Thank you so much.
Anybody else on the left side?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Thank you, Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey. I live in Kingston. As a policy and planning advisor to Kingston citizens, I support the previous statements in terms of the needs of full disclosure for the whole action so as not to have a segmented seeker process, including Kingston as an involved agency, as well as Woodstock, and the importance of full public scoping process. I'd like to also turn your attention to the economic analysis that will be required under seeker for a full and measured, balanced approach to environmental and economic and social impacts. While there have been claims that Niagara Bottling Plant will bring needed jobs, there is no information to prove that this project will be an economic benefit to the community, in particular given the full number of tax exemptions offered by Startup New York and the potential pilots for school and property tax exemption. I have researched many primary resources for this information, including Dun & Bradstreet. So let me just return to the concept that we have discussed in the press about below industry standard jobs. Niagara has suggested it pays an average of $46,000, but our research finds that that cannot be based on specific plant locations. This includes corporate and headquarter jobs. I've reviewed and analyzed 93 distinct positions at Niagara and found that about 10 to 25% lower pay is given than industry standard. Also, Niagara Bottling cannot necessarily guarantee that the higher paying jobs will be available to residents rather than, as they advertise in their job announcements, those with experience in their industry. Also, we have heard that they will be earning potentially as low as $11.76 an hour. That would be the custodial job, which is at the bottom of the list of the 40 jobs that will start here. In Ulster County, you would need $19 an hour or $65,000 a year to qualify for an apartment or to afford an apartment or a mortgage. Will those people who are earning $19 an hour or less at Niagara be dependent upon SNAP and heating assistance and so forth? Will they even qualify for the cost of living in Ulster County? Small business and resident concerns. I have personally heard from dozens of small businesses. I am on the board of a small business association, and over 100 residents personally in Kingston and Ulster. They are more than willing to pay for a $16 million bond rather than give up taxes from a highly profitable corporation for fear that their taxes will be higher, and that just because their water expenses might be higher, but their taxes will be higher as well if they give up tax revenue from high-profiting industries. Okay, and so I urge you to do cost benefits analyses on Startup New York and the pilots that might be offered, which could offset what could be benefits to our community. Finally, I'd just like to ask all of you, the public as well, to consider whether or not this 20th century industry has links to the educational mission of Ulster County, in which Startup New York requires environmental sustainability, affects benefits on the local economy, and opportunities as a magnet for economic and social growth. What opportunity cost are we doing? What is the opportunity cost of giving these rigs to Niagara First? I moved to this county and work in Ulster County because I believe in the forward-looking leadership that it can provide. I don't see any opportunities for my child in pursuing this industry for our area. So, thank you. Thank you very much.
Anybody else on the left side of the room? Anybody else on the left side? On the right side, Betsy?
First of all, thank you for letting us speak today. I'm here to address two places. Can you hear me?
Your name for the record, please.
Reverend Betsy Stang.
And your address, please.
17 Jonah Lane, Beyersville, New York.
Go ahead.
I'm here on 2 points. I assume you all received my letter on the archaeological level 1 implications, both at Cooper Lake and here in the town of Ulster. So the impact on historic and archaeological resources, I do notice you've marked moderate to large impact. Also for B, it's also for C because there are several sites that have not been revealed because they were never disturbed, including Cooper Lake. And there is a historical legacy of Cooper Lake, and part of the archaeological artifacts from Cooper Lake were removed first to Kingston, then to a museum in Syracuse, New York. So we have a trail, and we'd like to make sure that the adequate NAGPRA reviews, archaeological reviews, are completed. So that's the archaeological thing, and again, you received my letter on more information. The other is more personal as a cancer survivor. I would ask that you wait until you receive from the doctors, including Dr. Feldman from the Feldman Cancer Center here, the reports on the carcinogenic effects of byproducts of plastic bottling, which will be going into the Esopus. Look at your site, it's right on the Esopus, going right by a major cancer center here in the middle of a cancer cluster. There are so many of us suffering from these effects, and the proposed effects will be really bad for you guys here, particularly. You're the guys that will, be in the crosshairs for the particularly bad carcinogenic effects. So, Kingston's getting money for its water supply, Woodstock's getting its water depleted, you guys are getting a cancer bomb, particularly going into the Esopus. So that impact is something that I really ask all of you to please wait. We are getting the research from the different doctors in the area and around the country, and I think it's going to freak you out a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. On the right side, hands starting from the end of the row.
Thank you. My name's Kitty McCullough, and I live on Nabil Street in Kingston. Start at the beginning here. I want to thank you also for the opportunity to speak. Now that we're going to go into the secret process with a positive declaration, I think it's time, as a couple of other speakers have said, to weigh the economic opportunity costs of this project openly and honestly. It's fitting that the Kingston Water Board claims science based on an analysis of Kingston water capacity from 1961, 53 years ago, because the whole Niagara taxpayer giveaway, exploit natural resources, sprawl project is so very last century. half a century ago, in 1961, communities and regions depended on large corporations for jobs. Today, corporations mechanize to eliminate jobs and maximize profits. But communities that are leading the new economy across the country are revitalizing their urban centers with innovative industries and businesses that employ 13 to 20 people in quality jobs. That's the leading edge of job growth. We're doing this in Kingston. On one street in Midtown Kingston, we have 4 light industries that employ a total of 60 people. Nearby, a developer has created 95 workspaces for arts-based businesses, many of which are design manufacture workshops and commercial photographers shipping products around the region and across the U.S. A $20 million artist loft project in Midtown will bring 55 new workspaces online next year. A similar project in Harlem drew 53,000 applications from across the country. A few years ago, a design manufacture shop that fabricates high-end metalwork for architects in New York City designed and built a motorcycle that won the Bonneville Land Speed Record 3 times in Midtown Kingston. Uptown, Dragon Search and a technology company moved to Kingston in 2007 at the beginning of the recession and built to 24 employees. This fall, they bought a building that has been vacant for decades so they can expand and have already added 4 new jobs in just a few months. The 721 Media Center brings film and TV crews from around the world to Kingston, supporting ongoing livelihoods for dozens of people. The Midtown developer spoken of earlier recently bought 3 buildings in Rondout that will house 16 new artist spaces and 2 storefronts. These business people have used minimal tax incentives to reinvest in Kingston's urban corridors, brought dozens of buildings back onto the tax rolls, and more than 200 employed people onto our streets. We aren't willing to let you take the last 25% of our water capacity and interrupt this progress toward economic revitalization to create a handful of below industry standard jobs at everyone's expense. Our businesses may want to expand,
Please keep to the time, then.
and new businesses may need water to come to Kingston. We're depending on you to do the right thing for your neighbors.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Marco. I live in Woodstock. And I'd like to thank everyone else for their gentle tone. I'm not as eloquent. First, I'd like to thank you for cutting to the chase and including the pause deck in your declaration this evening. There's no point in wasting any time on that. As someone who lives in Woodstock, the town with the least to gain and the most to lose, standing beside the aldermen and women of Kingston who have also requested to be granted involved agency status, I ask you to include both municipalities as involved agencies in your declaration this evening, and I want to point a few things out. Today, while you were discussing, Mr. Quigley, the issue of leaks and closing them up and using this as your way to close those leaks, on the public radio, you said something very alarming, and I quote, "It's like going to your garbage can and selling what's in there." You said that.
That's correct.
Yes, and I disagree vehemently.
So
You have publicly mocked, I have 3 minutes.
Go ahead.
You have publicly mocked informed citizens who have asked you to follow the rule of law in inappropriate and inconsiderate ways. Your dismissal of our concern is very disconcerting to me. If you really consider the water that quenches our municipalities to be garbage that can be sold as a way to fix an ailing infrastructure, then I'm not sure that you, Mr. Quigley, and the town of Ulster are the right municipality to be handling the CEQA process as lead agent. I want to point out that I am not a Woodstocker just fighting for my lake. I am a Hudson Valley citizen concerned about the sustainability of our region. Economic development of Ulster has to be considered with an eye on sustainability. As you said this morning in the radio, it is likely that Niagara will not have the patience to sit through the length of time it takes to process a thorough and honest CEQA process. That includes a public scoping process. And why would they? They thought we were an easy target, but we're not. This proposal never should have made it this far. And as it has been made very clear by the citizens of concerned and interested municipalities, our water is not at play. But because we all know that you have a job to fill Tech City, and I read your incomplete application to DEC, I need to say now, as we go forward, regardless of whether Niagara gets their water from Cooper Lake, I am not comfortable with a plastic manufacturing plant in Tech City or anywhere else in this region. And I ask that you turn towards responsible and ecologically concerned businesses in your search to fill Tech City.
Thank you, Richard.
My name is Robert Barton. I live at 270 Risley Street in the town of Ulster. I am concerned about the Niagara plant being built in the town because I have lived nearby to there, particularly the air pollution caused by the 260 truck traffic 24/7 that are going to be traveling to and from this plant. The next concern is the pollution that is going to be coming from the plant itself. We do not know at this time what type of toxic material is going to be put into the air by this plant. We need to know the chemical makeup of what this is, what they're going to do to make sure that these chemicals are not going to be put into the air to harm the residents of the town of Ulster and the surrounding areas. My next concern is that the building is going to be in a floodplain. Floodplain with the type of climate that goes on now, and recently we can see what has happened. It's unpredictable. We don't know the type of products, the material, and the chemical makeup that's going to be stored inside and outside of this plant. And if a flood does happen in that area, water comes up and it goes in and it goes back out, it will go into the Opus Creek. Again, the town of Ulster wells are close by. How does that affect them, the wells, the drinking water that's going to be distributed to the residents that are within the Ulster Water District? And then it goes into the Hudson River. We all know that there's problems with the Hudson River with pollutions from PCBs that have been put in by GE. Also, would like to know more and detailed drawings of what this plant is going and how their chemicals is going to be distributed. I've recently read through the internet about water bottles and the chemical makeup. They are all dangerous. And not paying attention to what the makeup is and looking at details of studies all over from all types of sources and looking across the country and across the world where studies have been made and then looking at them in detail and trying to make sense and getting engineering studies done to make sure that what's done and all precautions if this plant is going to be put in that we do not harm, because I have the greatest health concerns because no amount of money can make you return to the health that you were before. So you might be the wealthiest person in the world, but if you get sick because of pollution that was caused by the Niagara plant being put in, it doesn't make, no matter how much they bring in income, it says that the residents have to be in a healthy condition to be able to work. Thank you.
Anybody else on the right side? Glorious?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Don Gregorius. I'm a resident of Woodstock. I'm also a representative of Woodstock and West Harley in the Ulster County Legislature. I don't know your policy, but I have speaking a short item here.
If you have copies, we'll be glad to take them.
We want to hear you. Can't hear.
Could you speak up a little bit?
First of all, thank you for having this evening and allowing the public to speak. We chatted briefly this morning on the radio. I don't know if you know it was me or not. I knew it was you. And what's coming on after this that you've announced, I thank you for taking it seriously and checking into it. I know you made a positive declaration so that this will move forward, indicate there's a resolution to include Woodstock as an involved agency. I'm reading this because I would like my thoughts known so that we get a positive vote from the town board and yourself as part of the town board when that resolution comes up to include Woodstock as an involved agency. So this says to the Ulster Town Board, thank you for the opportunity to address you with my concerns regarding the process you are considering for seeker review of the Niagara bottling proposal. I am aware of criteria that allow status determinations. However, I am unaware of any criteria that prohibits what I would call affected party status. While hairs can be split in governmental language, the fact is the town of Woodstock is an affected party and should sit at the table as an involved party. The town of Ulster and the city of Kingston stand to benefit from the determinations developed from the seeker review. Woodstock has no potential benefits and stands to lose in needed water and the costs involved in examining the validity of the information provided. It is difficult to justify that the town of Ulster and the city of Kingston stand to benefit from the results while determining what they mean, and Woodstock, who only can lose, has no equal standing. Perception is reality, and local government needs to be open and inclusive even in those times when it's not a requirement. Excuse me. Equal and different points of view make a better product and reduce or eliminate negative reactions and costly responses as a result of indifference and exclusion. The people of Woodstock and others that are concerned that our natural resources are for sale deserve to have their voices heard by having their representative as a part of the decision-making body. I respectfully request you include Woodstock as an involved party and let our voices be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. Anybody else on the right side? Mr. Wilbur.
Jim, how are you? Joel, good to see you again, and fellow brothers in government. I keep my hat on because the haircut under is far more offensive than if I were to trade it off. I thank the director of the Ulster County Planning Board, Dennis Doyle, for the comments that he made, and I thank Ulster County Legislator Don Gregorius for the comments that he made, and I echo them. I thank you for what's obviously going to be a serious consideration, and I presume an adoption of the positive declaration of environmental impact. So far we have half a loaf. Of course, Woodstock has asked for involved agency. The indications are, although you seem to be entertaining it as a motion, indications are that it won't be adopted. And the reasons there are because Woodstock is not, a funder or a permitter of any of these proposed actions. And although that may perhaps make us, unqualified to be an involved agent, I don't see we're in the law that disqualifies us. And for all the reasons that Mr. Doyle had already presented to you and Mr. Gregorius, I think that you should give it serious consideration, and I hope you will. And why is it so important to us that we become this involved agency? The Woodstock Town Board has adopted a very, very narrow focus on this whole process before you, and that's on the water. The other issues that have been discussed here obviously are important and have to be treated very seriously, but Woodstock is just concentrating on the water and the water alone. And we just feel that being able to come to the table, we would be assured of having our own independent study of the proposal and the potential impacts that it would have on the watershed in the town of Woodstock. We feel, we know how the seeker process works. The applicant makes assertions, and you reach into the applicant's pocket and set up an escrow, and you hire your own experts to check on the assertions made by the applicant. And in this case, Woodstock would like the opportunity to have its own independent hydrologist, or whatever expertise would be needed, to really look at the whole proposal and restore our tranquility to tell us if there's, if there is or if there isn't an impact on our watershed. I would suggest that since this whole proposal with Niagara seems to hinge on the water, that the very first thing that you investigate with the applicant is the issue of the water. You might be saving him a lot of money, you might be saving yourselves a lot of time. But that, as far as the town of Woodstock is concerned, is the most important issue. And I just also want to say that whether we're given involved party status or whether we're not, there are certainly citizens in the area that transcend the borders of Woodstock that are going to involve themselves. We would rather be inside the tent with you spitting out than outside the tent spitting in. But we will be an involved party. We'll be very deeply engaged in this. And I just hope that we don't have to, dwell on legalisms, that as neighboring towns and as people who I think share a very neutral concern for the future water sources of the area, that we can partner. Thank you very much.
Anybody else on the right side? Anybody else on the right side? I'll go back to the left. Ma'am? Name and address, please.
My name's Henrietta Wise.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm from Olive Ridge, New York, around the Big Ashokan Reservoir. I wish to respectfully say that it's not a good decision for the town of Ulster to be the seeker lead agency for the proposed Niagara water bottling company. Contrary to democratic sunshine and the inclusion of all the people and all the environment that has the distinct potential to be impacted negatively by the Niagara project, the town of Ulster has isolated its power over this project in the following ways. One segmented environmental assessment form, EAF. Town of Ulster allowed Niagara to describe only the Niagara facility build-out on Enterprise Drive as their proposed action in the EF, and to illegally omit listing the waters of Cooper Lake, which Niagara intends to pipeline with 2 pipes, a new pipe from Cooper Lake. Nor did the EAF list the proposed Niagara wastewater dumping in the lower Esopus waters, which are protected by riverkeeper waters, which are the legal responsibility of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Waters that impact wells, fish, benthic life, wildlife, and thousands of citizens on its way to the Hudson River. Nor did the EAF list the proposed New York City waters of the Ashokan Reservoir in Olive, New York, regulated by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, which Judith Hansen mentioned a month ago on camera as probable alternative waters in future cases of Cooper Lake drought. 2, exclusion of both Woodstock and Kingston as involved agencies. My goodness, they certainly are involved. It's Woodstock's and Kingston's basic source of life. It is their drinking water. Discounting the authority of the Kingston Common Council, all of whom recently came to the point of having to assert their own authority as a working representative of the will of Kingston's people by forming a resolution seeking inclusion as involved agency in the town of Ulster Niagara project. They will absolutely be involved since City of Kingston's charter C11-4 powers specifies the Common Council have oversight over construction and maintenance of Kingston waterways. To sum up, because of the scope of Niagara Bottle Company's impact on at least 3 major towns, 3 major bodies of water, and the environments of all these, the town of Ulster should not be lead agency. I suggest the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation rethink its own responsibilities and finally accept lead agency, a role it was created and funded by us, the taxpayers, to do very well. Woodstock and Kingston, a large city, should absolutely be an involved agency in the secret progress.
Henrietta, your third reading, 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Thank you very much. Moving on the agenda, I call for a motion to approve the minutes of October 2nd's workshop meeting and October 16th's town board meeting.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Town Clerk, any communications?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. I received 12 pieces of correspondence in regards to the resolution declaring positive secret and DECLA for Niagara bottling facility. I received 12 correspondence for the resolution declaring the positive secret declaration in regards to the negative Niagara bottling facility. Those letters were distributed among the board members during the week. I also received a piece of correspondence from Peggy King.
Using the microphone so we can hear you. Your mic's not working right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Shall I start from the beginning? I received 12 pieces of correspondence in regards to the resolution declaring positive DEC for the secret declaration for the Niagara Bottling Company. That correspondence was disseminated among the town board. I also received a piece of correspondence from Peggy King directed to the town board, thanking the town highway department for the projects done around the town hall. That concludes my correspondence for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Town Clerk. Mr. Brink, please present the abstract of claims.
Certainly, Supervisor. The Financial Committee met yesterday at 9:30, consisting of myself and Councilmember Secreto, and we reviewed the bills, and these are the totals for the different portions of the abstract. And I'm referring to the November 2014 abstract. Prepaid bills amounted to $378,988.38. Abstract bills amounted to $401,808.89. Escrow account $6,960 even. Reserve $15, and the fund total is $848,572.27. And Supervisor, I respectfully request you call for a motion and a vote to accept the abstract as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Brink. May I have a motion to accept the abstract as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Any discussion on the abstract? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Brink, the budget modifications for the month, please.
Yes, Supervisor. You all have copies of the budget modifications and have reviewed them. And now I will ask the Supervisor to call for a vote and passage of the abstracts as presented for November 2014.
Thank you. May I have a motion to accept the budget mods?
I'll make that motion.
Any discussion on the budget mods?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That concludes the preview of our board meeting. Is Mr. Hayner here? No. Richie Hayner? Man, he's going to miss out. All these people here for his retirement presentation. All right, moving on. Under new business, the first item is a motion to authorize Brinnier Larios to proceed with design and engineering of a proposed parking lot for the Kingston Rail Trail at Route 32 and Rockwell Lane at a cost not to exceed $5,000.
I'll make that motion.
Discussion on the motion?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second item on the agenda is a motion to set a public hearing for local law blank of 2014, setting of town fees. The public hearing date shall be December 4th, 2014 at 7:10.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Discussion on the motion?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item is a motion to authorize the Town of Ulster Water Department to purchase from Van Bortel Ford under the County of Onondaga, bid number 7974, one F-350 chassis and service body at an amount not to exceed $38,205.
I'll make that motion.
Discussion?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item under new business is a motion to authorize the Town of Ulster Police Department to purchase from Beyer Ford under the Monroe County bid 707-13, one 2014 Police Utility Interceptor AWD all-wheel drive at a price not to exceed $36,500.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item is a motion to accept the resignation of Patrol Officer Albin, effective November 9th, 2014.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion and in good standing.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. The next item is the motion to accept the resignation of Officer J.P. Rosa III, effective December 7th, 2014.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Gentlemen, the next item on our agenda is an email from the American Red Cross inquiring on the use of the Brott Center as a shelter in a time of disaster. I present this email to the board to have a discussion and to gauge the board's desire to have a discussion with the American Red Cross on following through with establishing the Brott Senior Center as a shelter. Any comment?
Well, I think it was brought up before we were speaking, that even when the power goes out, there's no power in the senior center itself. Maybe we should look at the Red Cross possibly getting a generator, just to lease it for the time being when these disasters happen. We have no problem housing them, but power itself, nobody has power.
Right.
And I think the point is that that building as it sits right now is not suitable as an emergency location because it doesn't have backup power and so forth. And it needs that in order to keep the heat on and so forth for people that might want to stay there. So that needs to be looked at by the Red Cross and maybe upgrade the building to meet those standards.
Supervisor, one of the concerns that I have, although in the past the building has never been filled on an emergency basis, but if something happens and it fills up, there's not adequate facilities for bathrooms, and I think that should be looked at. They are my comments.
Okay. Mr. Kitchen, do you have anything to add?
I think we need to have kind of like our fellow councilmen have said. I think we maybe Councilman Morrow would speak to the Red Cross on the town's behalf about the backup generator. I know we did use that facility for the hurricane in the past, and it does work out well. It's just a temporary shelter, but I agree with you folks as far as housing people overnight, bathrooms, no power, that could be a problem. So if John wouldn't mind reaching out to them, I think that'd be get some good ideas here.
So is there consensus amongst the board to continue the discussion?
Sure. Yeah.
Now I'll ask for a motion and to authorize Councilman Morrow as chairman of the Building and Grounds Committee to engage in conversation with the American Red Cross on making sure that the building is suitable and express to the American Red Cross the concerns that this board has. So moved.
Second.
Discussion further?
I'd be happy to do that. And to Councilman Brink's point about bathrooms, there's no shower facilities there or anything like that either.
Well, I'm sure you can explore those issues with the American Red Cross. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Aye. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a motion to authorize the building inspector to attend a two-day conference December 3rd and 4th by New York State BOC Tri-County Chapter. May I have a motion?
Make the motion. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Mr. Brink, as chairman of the Personnel Committee, the next item, please.
Yes, I have a personnel form here to to hire a part-time employee in the assessor's office, and the name is Taylor Glass, and her title would be clerk, and Taylor is a seasonal worker in the assessor's office who will be working from December 1st, 2020. They have 2104, but it's 2014 until January 15th, 2015. The rate of pay will be $11.50 per hour, no benefits, and she will work up to 20 hours a week. So I will make sure that that correction is made if you approve this hiring.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Here's the official thing. Moving on, the next item has been stricken from the agenda as Mr. Larios had an emergency. Under old business, I'm asking for a motion to adopt the Town of Ulster 2014 budget as presented to the town board. Public hearing was duly held. Comments were received, adjustments were made based upon the comments, and the budget is being presented for adoption.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Any discussion on the budget?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Secreto, an update to the board on the O&W Rail Trail Association, please.
Yes. On Wednesday, myself and councilperson Monroe went to town of Marbletown Community Center for a meeting with the O&W Rail Trail. The Ontario Western Railroad, for short, O&W, it stopped running in 1957. It ran from Kingston through the towns of Ulster, Hurley, Marbletown, Rochester, Wawarsing, and to Ellenville. And one of the main reasons the railroad stopped running at that time was the building of the thruway. Route 17 came around, and the airport started bringing product around to the towns. Right now, the trail, we're the missing link on the trail. We haven't said we're going to join it or not. Kingston's going to join in. There's a space where we have a half mile for Ulster, and the other towns already are on the trail. So it would be beneficial to the town to join this rail trail. There's some easements we have to go through with Central Hudson and some other properties out there. But the trail gets used, a lot of bicycles, people walk their dogs on these trails. The wintertime it can be used for skiing, cross-country skiing. And it'll run about 28 miles from here to Ellenville when completed. Right now, when we walked it, Highway Super Frank Petro, myself, and 6 members, we walked our section of the trail out to the Hurley part. The Hurley part, you ride 209 a lot. It's their walkway out there. That's part of the O&W. Ulster, which starts behind over by Coleman School towards the thruway, we have a half mile there. And we walked that, and then we met up at the Hurley section. And it's a nice little walk for people who like to go on those trails for a little nature walk. And Frankie was with us. It's not a lot of work to be done on that, is it, Frank?
No, just a lot of brush has to be cut back.
Some brush and some water runoffs.
Half mile run.
Yeah, it was a little more for us that day. But at the meeting, we discussed the certain logos. Each council person has a pamphlet on there from the rail trail. It shows the different logos that we might use. But it's beneficial to the town for us to jump on board and be part of the rail trail. They're looking at, this isn't set in stone yet, the possibility of $1,500, a one-time fee per mile. So for us, it would be $750. We have a half-mile section there. And they're looking at possibly having a line item in the future to keep money. So the money that we put in there into the rail trail possibly can be matching grants to different organizations.
When is your next meeting?
It's monthly. We might skip the next month because of Christmas. I think they're looking at the early part of January for the next meeting.
Okay, do they have a timeline for formally organizing this entity?
I think by our next meeting that everything should be ready to go.
Okay. At what point do you believe this board shall take and pass a resolution adopting our support?
I can find out real quick.
Could you get together and with the cooperation of Mr. Kovacs, a resolution for future presentation?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Does that conclude your report?
Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a presentation and acceptance of the town clerk's monthly report for the months of September and October 2014. May I have a motion to accept the presentation?
I make a motion to accept the
Second. Any discussion on the town clerk's monthly reports? All those in favor?
Aye.
Prior to calling for a resolution granting a one-year extension, I'm going to ask our building inspector, Kathy Moniz. This issue appeared before the town board a couple of meetings ago, and there were some objections to extending the extension at that time due to issues with the parcel. Could you detail for us what has happened since then?
Since my last visit with the board, David Corrigan from the Department of Transportation made a site visit, met with Mr. Flanagan, and came to terms. I'll read you exactly what he put, but he met with Tim Flanagan to review the stormwater discharge from the site, and they came to an agreement that he would add some material to the berm between his property and the Dallas site so that it would cut, as site, and that he would cut into the trench, into the detention pond that Quick Check was supposed to have done as part of their stormwater phasing. They also agreed that only time would tell whether this would work, so he did go back, inspected the work last Monday, and the work had been completed, and so my recommendation would be to give them an extension for 1 year.
Mr. Petremol, do you have any issue with the work that was done?
No, pretty much affects the state DOT more than it does us.
Okay. With that being said, I'll ask for a motion to accept the resolution as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the resolution? All those in favor?
Aye.
Before calling for a motion on the next resolution, I'll ask Mr. Kirchhoff to come forward to explain to the board the development that he is seeking site plan approval for.
Good evening, I'm Kyle Kirchhoff with 1561 Ulster Properties for these Larry and Joe from the Chasing Companies. We're here tonight to present
Kyle, could you use the mic?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. We're here tonight to present for the upcoming 1561 mixed-use building at our Ulster Commons project. So you see on the handout, as you come in the main entrance of the site, will be on the left-hand side. Just as a quick update for the rest of the site, Nuts Medical is up and running along with Tractor Supply. A couple days ago, we actually started pouring foundations for the Hardy's building, and we're looking to start as soon as possible for the retail building. Larry, you can run through the site plan,
Okay.
and I can present the elevations of the building.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. So what we did was we presented this and presented it to the planning board in October, received comments, addressed those, and presented again just last Tuesday. This site plan here, it totals around 12,000 square feet. If you remember, the original master plan called for a retail building here at 14,000 square feet, so this is smaller than that. And really, we addressed all the comments that we had from all the consultants, the planners, and the engineers. We had a few more ads Tuesday night as a result of the meeting. We updated all the drawings. I have 5 sets here with the CD and 2 full copies of the SWIP, which are addressed, and a response letter that demonstrates our response to all the comments received.
Okay. Is Mr. Howick here tonight?
No.
Well, perhaps you can update us on the as-built drawings?
I spoke with Corey and Joe about probably around 3 o'clock today. There was a couple outstanding items, and I'm going to be working with our contractor and AWD and the site contractor to straighten that out.
Time of estimated completion?
They promised me 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
That's the,
And Mr. Howick was okay with that?
yes, I spoke with the contractor afterwards, but there was some detailed things we worked out on the phone, and the letter went out from Joe, or an email, which was, I added some comments to it and sent it out to the contractor.
Any questions amongst the board members about this project? Mr. Credo?
None.
Mr. Morrow?
Not right now.
Mr. Brink?
No,
That's right, you did. Mr. Kitchen?
Tell me what bank's coming in.
It's a Ulster Savings Bank.
Sorry.
Any additional questions? Okay, I'll call for a motion accepting the resolution granting the site plan amendment approval for MHMG-KM Kingston LLC for a bank retail building at 1571 Ulster Avenue, Lake Latrine, section block and lot 39.82-2-7.116.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the resolution as presented?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.